Hey guys, I have a normal show for you, but I thought it would be bad form if we started the show like normal and just diving straight into the topic. I'm sure you're aware a very tragic event happened yesterday. I'm at a loss of words about it, to be honest. It's very shocking. And just thoughts and prayers go out to Charlie Kirk and his family. An intense moment. I think it really shows the tumultuous times that we're living in, and it's just it's absolutely insane to see. So I just thought we couldn't start the show like normal. We do have a normal show for you guys. It's crazy times, and I just felt I couldn't start the show like normal. So with that being said, I we will talk about it later in the show and the culture, because obviously it's crazy times going on right now. With that being said, I am going to pivot to our normal show. We might be a little off today because just a lot going on. So, with that being said, changing gears, as you guys know, I have been getting some flack recently around the rate cuts. Well, we got a new report, and everybody's assuming that rate cuts will be bullish for Bitcoin. But this new report that Binance just dropped shows that it's not that simple. And the timing of what comes next could catch most people offside. And so, considering we're entering a Q4 and everyone is certain Bitcoin is about to begin its rally, I do want to dive into this, and let's just, see what potentially could happen next week if rate cuts are announced. Of course, I'm here with Sophie. She's been doing a great job with us. Anyways, as you guys can see, I'm over here on Binance. They dropped a report. Actually, I'll go up to the title. Do rate cuts really drive Bitcoin's price? And this is in their insights and analysis research. And you guys know this last couple of days, you guys have been giving me a lot of flack in the chat and saying that I'm bearish. That hasn't been the case at all. But I got some data here. I was kind of just giving you my gut feeling, kind of what I think is going to happen. Now I kind of have some data to back up my perspective here a little more. I was just saying, hey, considering we are seeing a lot of economic uncertainty, I am not sure that what people are expecting to happen in the Bitcoin price is going to happen right away. I've been seeing a lot of people say, hey, when rate cuts happen, it's going to be super bullish. Bitcoin's going to pump. And as much as I do believe that is the case and it will follow in that manner, I don't necessarily think that right when they're announced, we're going to see some crazy parabolic run here, omega candle, what have you. And so here's the summary, and I'll break down the data for you guys in a minute. And it goes, historical analysis of the 2019 and 2024 Fed rate cut cycles show no consistent positive price impact on Bitcoin, which has previously followed a, quote, sell the news pattern or shown no clear trend. So diving down, the first part, they're really just kind of doing a macro overview of markets and, of course, of the crypto markets or Bitcoin markets. It says Binance, so they are saying it crypto markets. But I'll just jump straight to the part that is really, I think, backing up my thesis. And again, it's not that I'm bearish. It's just I think we might have the order of operations off a little bit here. So the portion titled Macro Outlook, Do Fed Rate Cuts Really Drive Bitcoin's Price? Is where we get the meat of the signal here. So with market expectations running high for the U.S. to enter a new interest rate cut cycle this month, it is an opportune time to delve into the potential impact on the crypto, or rather Bitcoin market. While it is acknowledged that a decrease in the risk-free rate is logically beneficial for the valuation of any risk asset from a discounted cash flow perspective, empirical evidence and testing indicate that a Fed rate cut actions are not by themselves a reliable standalone indicator for Bitcoin's price movements. And this is what I've been trying to tell you guys the last couple of days. I know the chat's been calling me bearish. You guys are saying, oh, Opti's a bear now. What is going on? Did Nico get in his ear? No, I just think we might have these orders of operation wrong, like I said earlier. So breaking this down, they reviewed 2 rate cut moments. There's actually been 3 rate cut moments, rate cut cycles in Bitcoin's history since 2014, but one of them was in 2020. So they kind of put that one aside because it was an emergency rate cut. It was, just a strange time. and it was probably not really in the same pattern as everything else. And so therefore, again, they focus on the 2019 and 2024 rate cut. And again, they have figures here saying Bitcoin did not show a consistent pattern before and after the start of the last two planned rate cut cycles. So the data is showing us is essentially there is no positive correlation in the sense that right when they cut rates, Bitcoin price is going to go up. So diving into this, there's two scenarios that they're pointing out, or rather out of the two data points, we know of two scenarios that are going to happen or potentially can happen. And it's a 2019 preventive cut cycle, which basically in this context, we don't really care about the S&P 500 per se, but we will focus on just the Bitcoin impact. And so the cycle was not triggered by an economic recession, but was, quote, an insurance cut in the response to trade tensions and concerns about slowing economic growth. And in Bitcoin terms, the market exhibited a classic buy the rumors, sell the news pattern, which I don't know if that's necessarily what I've been thinking of going to happen next week if we do get a rate cut, but the price action is kind of what I was thinking. So in the months leading up to the rate cut, Bitcoin's price surged from approximately 4,000 to 13,000. However, once the cuts were actually implemented, the price declined. This is kind of what I was saying. We're probably seeing some bullish indicators right now in gold price. And of course, the Bitcoin price is starting to retrace a bit here. That might just build up until we get rate cuts and then we see some kind of dip. Now, I know you guys are calling me a bear because I said maybe under 100. I don't know. All I'm saying is we might see a dip. Now, the 2024 soft landing cut cycle was a little different than the 2019 cycle. And we did see that following the rate cut cycle, the price did pump, but their data is saying it's not necessarily just because of the rate cut. So again, the background, the cycle began amid easing inflationary pressures and slowing economic growth, which depending on the data, you could argue is where we are right now, which was well anticipated by the market. Its macroeconomic context is more analogous to the current environment. Again, what we're kind of seeing right now, where a natural cooling of the economy guides policy adjustments rather than a crisis response. And this is where it gets a little more tricky. This is why I said it's not as simple as, oh, rate cuts happen, Bitcoin price is going to rip. So the Bitcoin performance was prior to the first rate cut in September, Bitcoin did not exhibit a clear trend, primarily oscillating between 50,000 and 70,000. The significant price increase following the cut coincided closely with the shifts in the U.S. election landscape, making it difficult to solely attribute the price movement to the rate cut itself, which is kind of what I was trying to say. Just because we get rate cuts next week, the 17th of September, doesn't necessarily mean the Bitcoin price is going to rip. Yes, people might feel a little more comfortable with their investments and now they know where to put their capital. And, you know, historically, the thesis is essentially, if we do get rate cuts, it does essentially mean more liquidity in the system. Rate cuts do increase liquidity because it basically encourages credit creation, and it will push capital into higher velocity assets or more risky assets, of course, like Bitcoin. And it usually does precede a boom in equities and hard assets. So it's not just that a rate cut happens and then price is going to go up just because the rate cuts were announced. Though I know a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines and kind of waiting for what's going to happen, and maybe they'll see Bitcoin as a better investment here. So just going down here a little more, you can see here's a comparison of policy rate changes and Bitcoin price changes. Again, there's really no clear connection here. And I think they're actually saying there's a negative correlation here. So policy force may exceed expectations, but for investors betting on falling interest rates, a positive historical signal is that once the Federal Reserve begins a policy cycle, the actual magnitude of its actions often exceed the market's initial expectations. So I think, you know, that's kind of what we're talking about here. Therefore, once the Fed initiates a new policy cycle, investors should remain open-minded about its ultimate trajectory and not be confined by initial forecasts. So this is kind of what I've been trying to say to you guys on the show, that yes, rate cuts are bullish for a Bitcoin, or rather more risky asset investment strategy. Again, if there's no interest into these treasuries and people don't want to invest in, then they're going to find somewhere else to store their wealth. But it's not as clear cut as, hey, oh, rate cuts are going to happen, Bitcoin's going to pump. It's more so the market might react negatively to this. Maybe it's already priced in a sell the news, buy the rumor, sell the news type scenario. And we might see kind of some market correction. And then eventually the capital will come in. Though I did find a very interesting tweet here. This is from the Bitwise Invest CIO. Yeah. Wait, yes, I'm sorry, CEO. And you can see here where it's quoting Eric Balkunas, and it goes, money market mutual fund assets are at a record $7.3 trillion. And Hunter Horsley goes, when rates come down, $7.3 trillion is going to be looking for a new asset to help store value. And I think this is probably the signal going on as I've been covering for you guys on the show. We're seeing people aren't interested in storing their wealth in treasuries. Treasuries are no longer the store of value medium that it used to be. We're seeing central banks go into gold. We're seeing investors not like treasuries. We're seeing them go into gold themselves. And if we do see this scenario where they do cut interest rates rapidly and in a cycle where they're just basically destroying the interest on these treasuries, it doesn't make sense to invest in like a 30-year treasury and you're only going to get less than 4% returns on this. We know inflation, if you're looking at the real numbers, is already close to that. If you're looking at what a lot of us believe to be the case, it's probably higher than that. So there's no return in long-term treasuries, which makes that investment thesis really shaky. And so what we're seeing, again, is if we do get this interest rate cut next week, doesn't necessarily mean the Bitcoin price is going to rip. But what it does mean is it does eventually lead to more liquidity, which is exactly what Lynn Alden's been saying. Bitcoin is a global liquidity barometer. Essentially, with more liquidity in the system, with the amount of credit creation basically going to get ramped up in next week, if this does happen, there will be more liquidity in the system. It's got to find a new home. We believe it will be Bitcoin eventually. I think this is a bullish case for Bitcoin towards the end of this year. But my whole caveat was this idea that I just don't think if we get those announcements on the 17th, we are going to see a huge Omega candle. I know everyone's thinking parabolic run in Bitcoin's coming. I also believe Q4 will be bullish for Bitcoin, but I don't think that correlation is one-to-one. Essentially, we get rate cuts, Bitcoin price is going to pump. That's what everyone's saying, and maybe as like a Pareto distribution here, Pareto principle, because everyone's saying that, maybe I'm taking the contrarian view that the prices of Bitcoin and some markets are going to go down. Again, long term, I think this is extremely bullish for Bitcoin, but I just wanted to maybe curb expectations for what's to come next week. Also, of course, confirm my bias here and give you guys more data that I'm not being bearish here. This is just kind of my read of what's going on right now in the markets. So I could be completely wrong. We could see a rip. I'm not sure. I'm just saying, maybe we need to curb our enthusiasm here. I know as a Bitcoiners, we do get very excited and we're overly bullish on news and what's going on in the world. And then we're like, why isn't the Bitcoin price pumping? I'm just saying the markets might not react exactly how you think. Long term, this is bullish. In the short term, we don't know what's going to happen. So I got some data for you guys. You can call me a bear all you want in the chat. But I'm backing up my thesis with the data now. So, hey, I could be wrong. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen. I don't think anyone's sure what's going to happen, which is why we're seeing people get their capital and kind of sit on the sidelines right now, because there is so much uncertainty in the world right now in economics terms, and of course in societal terms. Like, we are in a tumultuous time right now and no one really knows what's happening. But from our perspective, we still think Bitcoin's the best long-term investment or store of value. It's a place to be sitting in right now. If you are seeing what's going on in the world and you're just like, this is, I don't know what to believe. You were trying to opt out. This is why we always say, save in Bitcoin, store it correctly, and, just keep doing that. Long term, you will be set up in a good position. So anyways, enough ranting from me. Sophie, I know you're not the macro person. Was this me speaking Chinese, or did this start to make a little sense?
No, your speculation makes total sense. I mean, I think that we have famously fallen for the sell the news situation time and time again. And I feel like this might not be any different. The only thing that is different, though, from all of the patterns that you mentioned is that Bitcoin does have a presence in the S&P 500 now. Strategy is part of the S&P 500. Bitcoin treasury companies
they didn't get added yet. They didn't get added. No.
Oh, well, but will they get added by that
We don't
time?
know. Well, maybe by the end of the year.
Are there hedge fund companies that are like
yeah,
buying
there's
Bitcoin?
Bitcoin. Yes,
Okay,
of course.
well,
They're on
there you go.
NASDAQ, just didn't get added to S&P 500.
Still, whatever. Bitcoin is part of Wall Street right now. And
True.
that is something that we have never seen in the cycles previous. And so, you know, what makes this rate cut different is essentially that. So if people are placing their capital in Wall Street, and that's what usually tends to go up, I'm not so sure that it's much of a sell the news event, because if these people decide to invest in these companies, then the hedge funds are going to be forced to buy more Bitcoin. And it might be exactly what you say. It might not, you know, pump that same exact day. Maybe there might be like a mini pump and then a dump. But eventually throughout Q4, we are definitely going to see the material like that materialize.
I totally agree. And there was a good question in the chat here. Steve Math Desk. And there's other people in the chat that are saying the same thing. The bigger question is Bitcoin never really looked at Fed rates per se before. Why is that starting now?
Because we're in the system.
Yeah, kind of. That's kind of where I was going. I totally agree. You know, as a Bitcoiner, we do have this kind of perspective that we don't believe that a small group of people should be able to control the interest rates for the economy. We don't believe in decentralized control of the economy. That's why we're Bitcoiners in the first place. We have, you know, outsourced our monetary policy to an algorithm, and we know what's going to happen. But I think what has changed here, and this is part of the bigger conversation of what Sophie was saying, is that Wall Street is now finally dipping their toes in Bitcoin. And so the investors now, the institutional investors that are coming into Bitcoin, they do look at these indicators as reasons to deploy capital or not to deploy capital. And if they're seeing all of this data and they're waiting for rate cuts, then they're basically parking their wealth on the sideline and waiting until there's certainty in the markets. And then they will start deploying their next move. And so if we are seeing this much uncertainty on the TradFi level, then that essentially means that the big wealth, the people with deep pockets, the people that do wait for these Fed rate cuts announcements, they're kind of just sitting on their hands right now and just waiting to see what's going to play out before they make their next move. And so depending on what they see from the Fed rate cuts, that's what's going to be their next move. If they, you know, keep the interest rates the same, then maybe they either go along with what they've been doing and they're not changing their course. If they do see the rates cut, then they have to adjust their strategy. And so we are seeing an influx of capital coming from Wall Street now. And again, as this new investor, quote unquote, comes into the space, they are following these macroeconomic indicators of what they're going to do. So I think that's why a lot of us Bitcoiners now are looking to what the Fed does, what these nation state policies are doing, is because they are here now. They're on our doorstep. You know, Bitcoin is infiltrating Wall Street now. And all these things do play together. Bitcoin does have a role in the macro landscape. And we're seeing this play out in real time. Yes, it's still the beginning of this, but people aren't fully convinced of Bitcoin like we are, and they need more market signals before they either, quote unquote, take the risky investment and start to go into Bitcoin. If they can play it safe and not change their course, then that's probably what they're going to do. So that would be my take on why, quote unquote, we care about this now, is because we are getting bigger. We're seeing that a lot of capital is taking these indicators as, you know, gospel, and that's when they're going to make their moves. And so if we do see the rate cuts, then we know, hey, more liquidity in the system, and then people will be taking a little more riskier bets because the safe haven assets just aren't giving them the returns they need to continue to thrive. So that would be my take. Maybe it's not a perfect answer for you guys. You're like, why do we care about the fiat system? And it's my view is just, hey, we are a part of the macro landscape right now. We are not big enough yet to kind of do our own thing and not care about what's going. We're basically like, what's those little fishes that are under the whales? They like eat they eat the germs.
They're eating like the barnacles.
Yeah, they're eating the germs under the bellies and stuff. It's like that's how you can imagine what Bitcoin is right now. We are tiny in comparison to global markets. And so if they, have a hiccup, like Bitcoin pukes. If they sneeze, Bitcoin is completely out cold with the flu. So that's probably why there's more of this interconnection going on.
I mean, to be fair, I think we've graduated to like maybe a slightly bigger fish. We are being mentioned by the President of the United States and the Secretary of Treasury and, all these important people. And I do think that, we've kind of grown a lot as a currency and we've made our mark on the world. So I wouldn't put it past us just, as a sell the news event. I really do think that eventually, like, everybody is going to turn to Bitcoin, especially when they start to look at previous returns. And we know how boomers love their 5% returns. Imagine if they started seeing it was a 5x return. So yeah, I think it's exactly what you said. Maybe in the very short term, it's not going to pump, but in Q4, you better buckle up because it's gonna go way up, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Q4 is still going to be extremely bullish, especially if we do get these interest rate cuts. The liquidity is going to expand. And the basic view of inflation is, the more they expand the dollar supply, the more inflation goes up. That's the historical definition of inflation. It's not just, grocery prices going up. It's that they're expanding the money supply, and it all has to eventually find a home. People, once they see inflation is on the horizon, they try to find a place to store their value. And personally, here at Simply Bitcoin, and probably you guys in the chat, we've all at least understood that Bitcoin is the best place to store your value. It's the best performing asset the last 16 years. It's the place you need to be. The world is going digital, whether we like it or not. It is going digital. It will be digital. I don't think we're going to a world without the internet. That's why I am making the play that internet native money is going to be the move of the future. So that's why we're Bitcoiners, even in the face of all this stuff. Bitcoin is still 2% of the global capital. There's still a long ways to go.
There's a lot of opportunity. I see that as an opportunity. And more importantly, I think that even with just a slight increase, people will FOMO in. I guarantee you. This happens every single cycle. You start getting the text from your friends when, Bitcoin is going parabolic. Hey, I want to buy some Bitcoin. Can you help me? And, you just like look at them with like the slow blinks and start to question like what do I look to you like? I'm not a bank. Like, go figure it out yourself. No, I'm just kidding. I'll help all my friends, but people usually tend to FOMO in, and then that's when that we've made it to the top.
I am waiting for retail FOMO again. That was fun times, good times in 2017, almost good times in 2021, but it's on that. We're due for another. We're due for another retail moment here. Will we have it this year? I don't know. I'm hoping. I'm really hoping. It would be a lot more fun. And in that case, on any case, we still believe Bitcoin is the best way to store your value, to build wealth, build generational wealth. Of course, pay your bills, all that good stuff. But the excess profit should definitely end up in Bitcoin. And that's how you're going to be able to store your wealth moving into the, what's it? The end of the 21st century? Yeah, middle part.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, on that note, of course, we appreciate every single one of you guys that watches the show. Smash the like button, comment on the show.
Share it with your friends.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think rate cuts will be bullish? Comment on the show. Of course, subscribe to our channel. We appreciate everyone that's ever watched the video, that is subscribed to our channel, that hangs out in the chat. You guys mean the world to us. On that note, I do want to give a huge sending of love to our boys over at Bitcoin Well. Go to bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc. Sign up to get real Bitcoin. When you send them your dollars, they send you Bitcoin directly into your cold storage. And that's why we love them, because they can never rug pull your Bitcoin. They have never lost Bitcoin, and they will never lose Bitcoin into the future because they never hold that Bitcoin. Once your money clears, it goes straight to you. The best way to get your Bitcoin. And of course, when you sign up here, scan the QR code, you get 3 chances to win 1,000,000 sats in the Bitcoin Wishing Well. We will be playing it at the end of the show. I won't forget, hopefully, like I did 2 days ago. But we'll get your Lightning wallets ready.
You have me to remind you.
Yeah, get your Lightning wallets ready, and we will give out some Bitcoin at the end of the show. On that note, let's get into the show. So there is some new interesting news coming out of the SEC. It looks like they are pivoting 100%. And then also interesting stuff coming out of Asia. It looks like Asia is starting to make moves in various jurisdictions. They're, again, also pivoting into Bitcoin. As our boy Luke likes to say, we are seeing the Asia backflip into Bitcoin happen in real time. And so just around the board, it is a very interesting time in terms of Bitcoin adoption, whether you love the nation states legislation, regulation, or not. It's starting to look like they are waking up to this, and they're trying to make moves right now. So very interesting developments happening around the world. On that note, let's get into the show.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates. Instead of just writing them down on paper, paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo, and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on Stampseed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store.
All right, guys, we are back, and we are on Clark Moody's dashboard. Go to bitcoin.clarkmoody.com. Of course, the current Bitcoin price is 114,520, a negative 7.9% decline from all-time high. So, hey, the markets are rallying right now. Yeah, we're you know, there's some life in the price right now, and maybe it's kind of what I was saying in the beginning of the show. Maybe this is people pricing in the interest rate cuts. I have been following a few new, I don't know if I'd call them chart boys or not, but they are predicting next week is probably going to be a bullish week. He keeps saying lift off in, I don't know, 7 days. And I'm like, look, don't get my hopes up here, man.
Bro.
Don't get my hopes up, please. Anyways, the current.
You know what? I'd rather keep my expectations down and then be.
Yeah, pleasantly surprised.
Yes,
Pleasantly surprised. Again, yeah, we don't care about the Bitcoin price in fiat terms. It's about how much Bitcoin you own. But hey, look, you guys know me. I consider myself a moon boy. I earned that title with pride now. I wear it with pride now. Anyways, the market cap in fiat terms, in dollar terms, is $2.28 trillion, and the current block height is 914,256. That's the only time that really matters is block height. The block height's the only real time in the world right now. 914,256. Okay, so as I said, SEC Chair Paul Atkins, he just did a speech, I believe it was yesterday, and he said some interesting things. So I'm going to play that for you, and then I do have a block article kind of highlighting some of the more finer points. So let's play the clip. It is pretty bullish. Obviously, I know a lot of people in the audience aren't that favorable towards the SEC, but it is a further signal of what we've seen, that the administrations, the institutions, they are all pivoting now with this idea, at least in the US, which is basically having ripple effects to everywhere else around the world, which I'm going to cover later in the news, that now they are embracing Bitcoin, which is a strange place to be in, considering Bitcoin has been, the outcast for so long. We've been disparaged and called all kinds of things, and now they're making a 180% pivot on what's going on. I think it could be bullish. I'm also a bit concerned about overregulation. So let's just play the clip and then we'll chat about it.
And today, ladies and gentlemen, we must admit that crypto's time has come. For too long, the SEC has weaponized its investigatory subpoena and enforcement authorities to subvert the crypto industry. That approach was not only ineffective, but injurious. It drove jobs, innovation, and capital overseas. American entrepreneurs bore the brunt and have been forced to spend fortunes on building a legal defense instead of a business. That chapter belongs to history. It's a new day at the SEC. Policy is no longer set by ad hoc enforcement actions. We will provide clear, predictable rules of the road so that innovators can thrive in the United States. President Trump has tasked me and my counterparts across the administration with making America the crypto capital of the world. And the President's Working Group on Digital Asset Markets has delivered a bold blueprint to guide us in those efforts.
So guys,
we need the bars. We need the bars.
So guys, look, a complete shift from Gary Gensler. And we all know, I've been saying this on the show, I've been trolling a little bit on the show, that Gary Gensler was really a Bitcoin maxi, and he was trying to, protect investors from the mass scams of shitcoins out there, which
wasn't he though?
That was me trolling. Yeah, he did a class at MIT on blockchain.
What?
And then so we were all bullish that he would come in and he would be favorable for the industry. And people are arguing like, hey, the ETF was launched under Gary Gensler. And so I kind of took that and spun it and was like, maybe he waited so long because he wasn't able to justify how not to get shitcoin ETFs launched. And so this is why it took so long, but eventually pushed through the Bitcoin ETF.
Maybe he was between a rock and a hard place.
Being nice about it, yes. But still.
He's not here anymore. That's why we can be nice about it.
But still, the rhetoric we're hearing from Paul Atkins here, the new SEC chair, I think it's completely different than what we saw in the past. And as you can hear him in that speech himself, the biggest point, I mean, he said crypto's time has come. I would argue it's Bitcoin's time has come, but they are doing some things that I'm not so favorable about in terms of the fact that they are using crypto and what's going on from the SEC.
There is no crypto without Bitcoin.
Totally agree, but it gets a little worse than that, though. But it does seem like they are fully embracing Bitcoin or crypto, whatever word you want to use, and really on the path, or at least trying to live up to the meme of US being the Bitcoin superpower of the world. So I'm going to dive over here to the blocks coverage of this, because there is some stuff in here that is, I'm sure that the audience isn't going to really like, but a very interesting difference from Gary Gensler when he was SEC chair. So headline, SEC chair Atkins says on-chain capital raising should come without endless legal uncertainty. I mean, I like it in terms of when they talk about Bitcoin. As we saw, the last year, 2024, was a hard year for Bitcoiners. We saw Bitcoin wallet providers and companies leave the U.S. We saw a lot of people getting arrested. It was a tumultuous year, and there was a very real sense from Bitcoiners that, hey, like, this is going the wrong direction. It might not be safe for us Bitcoiners. And then, Trump using his campaign was very pro Bitcoin, and arguably is one of the reasons why he got elected. Now, going into this a little bit, you can see again, basically you saw the clips, but right here is probably where we would differ from Paul Atkins here, the new SEC chair, is this quote right here. So Atkins also reiterated the stance that, quote, most crypto tokens are not securities and fall outside the agent remit. Now,
that's correct. It's currency.
Well,
Take away our capital gains tax.
In terms of Bitcoin, yes. I again, I don't like to be an advocate for law, giving institutions the power to arrest people. But I would argue that shitcoins are securities.
Well,
by the Howey test, it is a security.
Yes, it is.
But then now they're saying it's not.
But I also don't care about shitcoins.
I agree. I agree with that.
But also, I don't care how they like. I could literally care less. Like, if they're saying Bitcoin is not a security, then that means that it's a currency. That means that it's protected speech, and that means that you can't tax me if I sell it. So
baby steps. We'll get there, hopefully. Hopefully we'll get there. Anyways, I'm going to read a little more of this, and this is probably where a lot of the Bitcoin maxis, Bitcoin purists are going to be like, oh, man, it's not looking too good. So Paul Atkins calls Project Crypto part of President Donald Trump's efforts to turn America into the crypto capital of the world. The SEC is working to, quote, modernize the securities rules and regulations to enable our markets to move on chain. If you guys have been following along, there has been a huge push to tokenize all securities. And it seems like now they are laying the road for that to be possible. So again, going further in this, it goes, this includes providing clearer guidelines regarding the, quote, security status of crypto assets, as well as opening the door for trading platforms to offer trading, lending, and staking services under a, quote, single regulatory umbrella. The move comes amid a sea change in the regulatory approach towards crypto in the U.S. during Trump's second term. This summer, lawmakers were able to pass the first substantial piece of crypto legislation, of course, the Genius Act, and have since made progress on the market structure bill called Clarity that would determine whether the SEC or the CFTC is responsible for market oversight. So as we've been kind of seeing, we've gotten this sense from the new head of the SEC that they are acknowledging that they had weaponized the SEC against the industry. Now they're trying to, pull back on that. Now, maybe they're going a little too far the other way. I believe that there's Bitcoin and everything else is a scam, but I'm not someone out here to essentially say, like, let's make rules to.
I think this might
to make it easier to compete with Bitcoin, but it's a gray area.
Well, first of all, nothing can compete with Bitcoin, and
Agreed.
Second of all, I think this might just be a way for the SEC or whoever to get people like Ripple, XRP, all these shit coins to donate more money to them, because that's what they did the first time around.
That's, you took the words right out of my mouth, Sophie. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Just be them trying to get them to pay more money, to donate more.
Totally agree. That seems to be the case, and we are seeing some pushback from politicians in DC in that case, or in that vein. So I'm going to hold my breath here and see what actually comes out, but I do like the favorable rhetoric. So I'm hopeful. I am hopeful that, hey, at the very least, as we've been saying for a long time, the only use case for shitcoins is to basically make cover for Bitcoin. So if they're going to let it all flood and hit the markets, then game on. Game on. Yeah, totally. Like, game on. Bitcoin's going to succeed via the merits of its own, and nothing else can compete with Bitcoin. So
maybe this guy is like actually a super hardcore maxi.
Just like unleash the floodgates and let Bitcoin win. Who knows?
We're ending like all protections for shitcoins. You can gamble at your own risk, and we're just gonna adopt Bitcoin.
Yeah, love it. It's a smokescreen here. That's the only use case for shitcoins. Anyways, I will move on, and let's talk about what's happening in Asia. A lot of interesting stuff going on. Literally, I don't know if I could say today. It was probably this morning and yesterday, but there's some interesting stuff happening. So let's jump right into it.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store.
Alrighty then, guys. So we are back, and I think this is an interesting pivot. We've been seeing this trend play out the last couple of months in Hong Kong, and we have been making this case, this theory that what happens in Hong Kong is essentially a test bed for mainland China, and whatever they do there, they're getting, I would say, direct approval from mainland China. They have the, two countries, one policy kind of operandus there. And so I don't think this is just like a nothing burger. But anyways, going further, we have Hong Kong moves towards looser bank standards for crypto in bid to cement regional dominance. So as we're seeing right now, as we just played, the U.S. is very blatantly saying, hey, we want to be the Bitcoin capital, the crypto capital of the world. And those ripples are, going out into the rest of the world. And now they're also trying to make some plays. So while this might be a minor play in regards to the traditional macro landscape, I think this is an interesting development that, yes, whether you love or hate Trump, ever since he became pro-Bitcoin or pro-crypto, however you want to frame it, everyone else had to take what we're doing here a lot more seriously, and we're slowly but surely seeing the pivots happen in real time. So going further into this, Hong Kong proposes easing banking rules for licensed stablecoins and select crypto assets. Again, the push for stablecoins is becoming a worldwide phenomenon. So consultation on CRP1 framework open until November 2025, effective January 2026. HKMA divides crypto into two groups based on stabilization mechanisms and risk. So Hong Kong is taking another step towards cementing its status as Asia's crypto hub. Again, proposing looser requirements for institutions holding stablecoins and digital assets. The new supervisory policy manual that sets out how crypto should be classified under Basel Committee standards. The proposal, if finalized, would allow banks to treat licensed stablecoins as lower risk assets, cutting the capital requirements currently applied under international banking rules. Of course, lighter rules for licensed stablecoins, and then the crypto part is split into two groups. The HKMA has divided crypto into two categories. Group 1, assets with stabilization mechanisms and effective risk controls. Subgroup 1A covers tokenized traditional assets, while 1B includes licensed stablecoins. And then Group 2, unbacked or algorithmic crypto assets without sufficient safeguards, covering most of the current market, including Bitcoin and Ethereum. This dual-tier system slightly diverges from strict Basel criteria, but aligns with Hong Kong's strategy of balancing innovation with risk control. Again, not my favorite, views here, but we know that they probably can't fully endorse Bitcoin and just, let it all fly. But they are making moves. And so for better or worse, you're starting to see that every institution, or rather most all the institutions in the world, are taking what Bitcoin is doing very seriously. Now, this alone would be pretty interesting because we have been covering the saga of what's going on in Hong Kong. Is China mainland tacitly involved in this? Is this them directly or indirectly trying to experiment with Bitcoin? I would make the case that this is, them experimenting and using Hong Kong as a test bed for what they're going to do. But also in Asia, we saw this happen this morning as well. South Korea lifts ban on VC funding for crypto companies. They had a ban in place since October 2018, and now they have officially pivoted on this. So South Korean crypto asset related companies can now apply for venture capital funding after Seoul abolished a 7-year-old ban. The South Korean newspaper Seoul Kyung-jae reported that the Ministry of SMEs and Startups say the existing ban on crypto firms' VC funding will end on September 16th.
Isn't that the same day that they're announcing rate
It's the
cuts?
17th, the day after. Interesting. Yeah.
Interesting.
The ministry said that State Council, South Korea's chief executive body, and ministerial cabinet has signed off on the move. So they agreed to make a partial amendment to the enforcement decree of the Special Act on the Promotion of Venture Business, essentially saying that the amendment will effectively scrap the designation of crypto trading and brokerage provider firms as a restricted venture business. And again, the ban has been in place since 2018. And this is, I think, combined is very interesting considering what we're hearing from the U.S., of course, from the Trump administration, from Scott Bessent, from the SEC, the CFTC. The U.S. is embracing Bitcoin. And now we're seeing that everywhere else is having to embrace Bitcoin too, whether they like it or not, whether the regulations or, the laws that they put in place are favorable or not. They have to make moves. This is, in my opinion, is essentially the institutions are bending the knee to Bitcoin. They're trying to get ahead of this because they understand that their current regulations are not setting them up to, in their terms, profit from this crypto boom that we are a part of, this new gold rush, as people like to call it. So interesting stuff happening. You are seeing that the tide is shifting in our direction. Again, I would like to see a lot more grassroots adoption of Bitcoin, but a lot of people are still waiting for the authority figures to basically tell them, yeah, it's safe for you to get into Bitcoin. There's, again, so many things going on in the world right now that people are hesitant to invest in something like Bitcoin. Even to us, it seems like a no-brainer. To a lot of people, it's still something they don't want to get involved in. But now they have to. They're starting to change the rules so that they can start to make moves. So I think it's an interesting development. Again, love them or hate them, but Trump really started the dominoes to fall. So kudos.
He's definitely come through. And if these banks in Hong Kong are making it easier or removing regulations and obstacles for people to purchase quote unquote crypto, that means that the banks themselves might be buying Bitcoin because,
well, the CEOs probably are for sure.
No, not the CEOs, the banks themselves, because think about it. If they're making it easier for money to pour into crypto, then that means that they're going to have to buy something to actually be their store of value. I mean, that's what I would do if I was a bank. But what do I know?
Yeah.
I'm just a girl.
To your point, though, we have seen a lot of banks and hedge funds invest in MicroStrategy. So, one step removed. Again, maybe this is kind of a sign of the times of where we are right now, where direct exposure to Bitcoin is still frowned upon, but hey, you can invest in a company that all they do is buy Bitcoin, and you could just be like, yeah, I like what he's doing and the profits are there. So you can justify that case to your shareholders and people at your company. Whereas going directly into Bitcoin could still be looked upon as a bad move, but we've known the ETFs basically, best ETF launch ever. We're seeing a huge amount of buys in MicroStrategy. Some banks buying MicroStrategy, sovereign wealth funds buying MicroStrategy. So they're not fully into Bitcoin yet per se as an entity, as a corporation, but they are making moves towards it. And, they're moving slow, but just that gives us more time for us to stack and acquire our positions here. So I think it's bullish all around. I think, it's all good for Bitcoin. And yeah, we're just starting to see the dominoes fall. It's just very interesting to see how quickly this happens. And like I said, 2025 is going to be one of those timestamp years where we acknowledge, yeah, things started to change after that year. And in the moment, maybe we're getting restless. Maybe we want to see bigger news. We want to see more adoption of Bitcoin being used peer-to-peer by individuals.
I mean, it's that though. That's the part. It's not so much the news anymore, because I don't know how much more positive the news can get. The news has been all positive, like 100% positive. And like, when is the news ever 100% positive for anything? I think it goes back to what I said the other day. It goes back to like peer-to-peer adoption and usage. And it's really cool that Sol is lifting this ban, because maybe a lot of these companies and startups that are coming up that VCs want to invest in are companies that enable people to use Bitcoin peer-to-peer. And if that happens in Sol, and if that's like kind of the testing ground to see whether that concept really works or not, I mean, that would be huge. That would be the thing that shows governments, hey, like maybe we can actually actually do this, like, and hold Bitcoin, and it'll be beneficial, because look how it's working out for these companies. Look how it's working out for the everyday person. They already know that they have to get in on it. But I think once they realize that the public masses are using it and that it's been tried and true, that's going to be like the final nail in the coffin for the institutions and governments to just go all in.
Well, I would love to see it. I mean, we do know the kimchi premium. And that's not like a derogatory term. That's like what they officially call it. There is a huge fervor for Bitcoin in Korea. In past bull markets, like when the Western world, when the US would go to sleep, Europe would pick up the trading volume, and then Korea would basically pick up the rest. And there'd be times where you'd wake up and the price would just be pumping, and you'd just be like, my brothers over there in Asia, my Bitcoin brothers holding it down for us. And we haven't seen it in a while. But look, but it seems like, I know the Bitcoiners out there probably haven't left, but it does look like the pivot we're seeing from the administration in the US is having effects on administrations globally. So look, it does seem like we are on the precipice of everyone adopting Bitcoin. Now, will some of these laws be favorable? That's still all up for debate. And maybe it does lead into more of the sovereign individual thesis, where you will see some jurisdictions that treat Bitcoin better and people will start to move there. Entrepreneurs will move there. And so competition is good here. I love to see the competition happening, and it seems like it's just beginning. So yeah, like Sophie was saying, the news seems to be really good. It's been really, really good. How much better can it actually get? I think for all of us is like, going down the street and seeing people use Bitcoin is probably the best news, where we can use Bitcoin day to day. That's going to be, the final apex news for us here. But yeah, it's heating up. It's changing.
The best news that I could ever get is having somebody that I know tell me that, they've used Bitcoin in some way that isn't just as a form of investment. That's the best news to me, because that means that it's working. And that means that it's been a proven concept to somebody that I know. And if it's a proven concept to somebody that I know, then I know that other people who are just like normal, everyday individuals will also make that realization on their own. I don't know when, I can't tell you when, but eventually, with enough maniacs like Opti, Nico, and I, we will get there.
We'll get there. One day we will get there. Okay, guys. We're gonna go into the culture. It's going to be a little different than usual. As I said in the beginning, it's a crazy day for all of us. Sad day. So we will be chatting about it coming up right now. So after the break, we'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our partner, bitcoinben.io. If you're into freedom, Bitcoin, and building a real community, this is for you. Gain exclusive access to real-world, members-only, private clubs across the globe, featuring poker nights, expert-led classes, co-working spaces, educational meetups, live events, and more. Current locations include Sarasota, Nashville, Boston, Dallas, Las Vegas, and St. Louis, with new clubs launching soon in West Palm Beach, Scottsdale, Alabama, and beyond. Not to mention Bitcoin Ben's resorts in El Salvador. There's 3 of them, and they're absolutely beautiful. You'll also get access to the first fully backed Bitcoin bank with fiat ramps and savings accounts. It's called Private Key Bank, and you guessed it, it's based out of El Salvador. Go peer-to-peer with Bitcoin bulk buys, tap into home equity for long-term Bitcoin growth, and join their exclusive mining pools if you're interested in mining. What are you waiting for? Head over to bitcoinben.io, join today, where Bitcoin meets freedom.
All right, guys. So I'm sure you're aware of the very tragic event that happened yesterday. I don't know if everyone saw it, but extremely shocking and graphic video that I'm sure everyone saw, or at least it was circulated all over the internet. That's all my timeline was really yesterday. And, earlier today and last night, Soph and I and Nico were like, man, what do we do the show on today? It's hard to even talk about Bitcoin. It's hard to make content on a day like today. And, whether you agreed with his politics or not, to see this happen is just absolutely horrible. So, not to be glib about it, but yesterday we lost a Bitcoiner, guys, and we lost a father and a Christian and a young man that was a very pro free speech maxi, willing to debate. And it's really hard to put into words. I think I'm still kind of in shock about what happened and what I saw and kind of what is going on in the world, and just how tumultuous that this time actually is. I know sometimes we're very, me personally, I'm a jester. I like to joke about it, and we talk, I say some things that are wild, but yesterday it was definitely one of those moments where I had to reflect on my life and who I've been, and what if I wasn't here today, and just is my life in a position right now that I am okay with, and rather have I done everything that I wanted to do. And it was just it was one of those shocking moments. So I'm going to play this clip of Charlie. I'm sure there's a lot of good clips of Charlie Kirk around more of what his political takes are and his ideologies. But since this is a Bitcoin show, I'm going to kind of mourn him in the sense of not only his movement, but what he's done for Bitcoin. And, it's just absolutely tragic to see. So I'm going to play this clip, and then I have Ross Ulbricht's kind of take on this and the importance of Charlie Kirk in the Bitcoin movement, not just in the cultural movement at large, but in the Bitcoin movement. So here's the first clip.
What are your thoughts on Bitcoin?
I'm a big fan of Bitcoin.
Should the U.S. do a Bitcoin reserve?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, the United States should have a strategic Bitcoin reserve.
And who should pay for the Bitcoin reserve?
That's a good question. Hopefully, some of the tariff money could potentially do that. The reason why I think we should have a strategic Bitcoin reserve, I know you guys had Michael Saylor on your show, and I think he's onto something. There is something called the mass adoption theory, which is over a period of time, like the English language, US dollar, things just catch on, and kind of volitional and there's no stopping it. I think Bitcoin is that. You got to watch out though. Quantum computing could potentially crack cryptography.
But if they do that, then they're also cracking bank accounts.
Right.
And stock trading
yeah,
accounts.
So quantum is the only asterisk on all this. But I think Saylor is onto something very profound, which is that because Bitcoin is a scarce, legitimately scarce resource, that it's probably going to go nowhere but up. So Saylor makes a very provocative argument that Bitcoin could go up 10x over the next 10 years or something like that, which therefore, if we start a Bitcoin strategic reserve, it could like pay for the national debt and like basically cover our losses on the deficit. But I think that I think the United States government should be invested in crypto without a doubt.
I tend to agree with Michael Saylor that it's more likely to go to 1 million than 0.
Yes, I think that's right. And by the way, so you have a problem of the world's richest people. They don't know where to put their money. So there's only so many penthouses in London and Paris that they could buy. There's only so many ranches in Wyoming that they could buy. And so we've had this problem. So you create all this money, the money goes upwards to wealth inequality point, to your earlier point. The question is then, well, what do rich people do with money? There's only so many equities they can buy. There's only so many shares in NVIDIA and Apple and Microsoft they could justify. Well, money needs to find a home, and it's found a home in Bitcoin. And so once it has mass adoption, and literally the wealthiest families on the planet are starting to park serious monies in Bitcoin. And because it's scarce, it's easy to transfer, and it's just a winner. Sometimes there's a mass adoption, and it just rises to the surface, and I think Bitcoin is that.
Absolutely spot on. And it's, man, like, look, I didn't agree with all of Charlie Kirk's politics, but as a Christian or someone that's trying to be a better person, there's a lot I do agree with him on, and it's just it was very shocking and intense to watch that last night. Though, again, that clip spot on. I do want to hit on this portion from Ross Ulbricht, which I think really is going to cement his place in the Bitcoin history, in the Bitcoin movement. Ross did a whole eulogy for him. And anyways, he goes, last year alone, when President Trump won the election, he asked Charlie what was the number one thing he could do for him. And Charlie replied, free Ross. And in the days leading to my release, Charlie advocated for a full pardon. He did this and more without expectations of me. You know, just huge shout out again. You could argue that he is, you know, the main person to get Ross freed. I know the Bitcoin community rallied around Ross Ulbricht, but he was part of the Trump inner circle, and it's just too young, tragic. And one last thing here from David Bailey, which I think really sums up everything. Like, I don't know if you guys saw the video, but his shirt said freedom across his chest. Like, and it's just, I'm getting the chills right now thinking about it. It's just extremely horrible and sad to see. So David Bailey's tweet, without freedom of speech, there is no America. I think that's why I can't shake this pit in my stomach. Bitcoin is the last bastion in unsaleable freedom, immune to, I don't know if I can say that, immune to conflicts and control for the sake of the country and the world. We must be successful. I will echo that as a freedom of speech maxi. It's, you know, it's absolutely horrible what we saw. Someone willing to debate these ideas. Just, you know, I'm literally at a loss of words of what to say, guys. A really heavy moment. And we've been feeling it here all day.
You feel it online. You feel it in the air. You feel it with anybody that you speak to, that the world lost someone who was genuinely a good person and genuinely trying to fight for what was right. And I didn't know how involved he was in Free Ross movement. And it just goes to show, like, there was consistency in his message for freedom of speech. He really, really believed in that. And he really believed that without dialogue, we would be lost as a nation, because we would be lost without each other. If we don't speak to each other, if we don't have this basic freedom, then, you know, we lose ourselves to dictatorship, authoritarianism, and just basic, like, 1984 style, like, NPC stuff. So yeah, we lost a really, and the fact that he was killed doing, like, exactly what we, you know, what he always did, which was just talk to people, is infuriating, honestly. Like, it should make you really sad.
Yeah, and also, you know, as content creators ourselves, it's absolutely horrific that something like this would happen for someone that just talks on the internet. It's just we are living in some crazy times right now, tumultuous times right now, economically and of course societal, culturally. And
Yeah, because if it happens to somebody like Charlie Kirk, if it almost happened to the president of the United States, then, what's left for everybody else? You
yeah,
have to wonder, like, when is the day that somebody is going to be upset about us talking about Bitcoin? Because you have to realize, like, we're talking about the monetary system. This is the biggest system in the world, aside, and it's the foundation of like civilization. Aside from religion, there's, money. And so when will they come after Bitcoiners? You have to really that's why it's such a
yeah,
moment of reflection
100%.
for me, at least. Like, aside from being a content creator, so it's the type of content that we're making. Like, when will they start to come for Bitcoiners?
Couldn't agree more. So, a very solemn day. And then also the day today. It's it
24
another
years.
yeah, another tragic event that happened here. It's just a very sad day all around. Again, whether you agreed with him or not, to see this happen is just horrible and I'm sure traumatic. Like, I'm still at a loss of words, shocked from that video. It's just absolutely insane what happened yesterday. And it is very concerning about where we are currently and where we're headed. And I think it's very important for us to keep a level head and, of course, to try to fix this system peacefully and try to figure out a way that we can actually co-opt and live amongst some crazy stuff happening. Like, it's just a crazy time. Again, like, it's hard to even talk about because I fully don't have my thoughts around this whole thing. I think I'm still in shock just as everyone else. And I really don't think that I shocked that easy, but man,
Just that video
it was just insane, man. It's really intense to see what happens. And some people celebrating, it's just horrible. It's just
I
absolutely
think,
horrible all around.
to that point, I think that the best thing that we can do right now is not give in to this idea of separating and calling our fellow countrymen the enemy. I think the bigger enemy is evil itself, and we have to do everything to combat that, spiritually, mentally, physically. Like, you got to ask yourself, what positive uh moves are you making to make this world a better place, and how are you opting out of, this system that turns people against each other? Like, how are you opting out of the, what are you consuming on your day to day? Are you watching legacy media? Are you letting yourself get, brainwashed by people whose best interest is to keep us fighting? Or are you, getting your information from different sources of information, from different people, from different sources? Are you, still a slave to fiat, or are you opting out and defunding these monsters by buying Bitcoin? Because at the end of the day, that's what Bitcoin really is. That's why we call it the peaceful revolution. It's because you are defunding the people who have the ability to make this happen for free. And if they don't have that power, if they don't have the power to press a button and all of us buy into it, then they are no longer in power. And you can actually take a lot of that power for yourself to do good and to spread love and kindness and have a family and have a legacy in this world.
Yeah, I would echo what Soph said. It definitely feels like a spiritual war going on right now. So, me personally, I'm definitely reflecting on who I am, what I do, and of course, trying to align with the good. And this is why we do what we do. Is we really do want to help as many people as possible. And as we can see, there is a lot at stake here. And there is some evil in the world that wants to stop this. So I just want to, as we wrap up the show, to just, hopefully we all stay in good spirits, stay positive, stay constructive. Just crazy times all around. Call your loved ones, all that good stuff. It's a crazy day to say the least. And hopefully tomorrow we can come back here in a little better spirits. But I think our heads are somewhere else right now. So on that note, we love you guys. We appreciate you guys. Stay safe. Stay, hungry for truth. Let's speak the truth. Speak truth to power. We are here to help the world, as we're trying to help ourselves and better our positions in the world. But a lot of the division we're seeing right now is getting to a very scary place right now, and we don't know where we're headed right now. So just keep your cool, calm, cool, and collective. Let's continue to spread Bitcoin, continue to get people to understand why they need Bitcoin, and of course, do our best to be good people on planet Earth as we try to do every single day. So on that note, guys, really appreciate you guys. Rest in peace to Charlie Kirk. And of course, our thoughts and prayers go out to his family.
And to all of the victims of 9/11, all
Yes,
the heroes and people who lost their lives
100%,
24 years ago.
100%. It's a very solemn day, and it does feel like things are changing right now. So, just stay safe out there, guys. Anyways, on that note, I know kind of a bummer to end today's show, but it's a crazy, unprecedented time. I don't think we've
use it as fuel to stack some sats and keep going with the peaceful revolution. That's the best thing you can do.
100%.
Make babies and stack some sats.
100%. So on that note, guys, we love you guys. We appreciate you guys. Have a good rest of your day. We will be back tomorrow for the last show of the week. It's your boy Opti. It's the wonderful Sophie. See you guys later, man. Stay up. Bless you all. Till tomorrow. Later, guys.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.